Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone, on our cold day out there, but we haven't gotten any of that snow yet that's supposed to come our way later in the week. So we're getting prepared. But thank you, Kim, for joining us. We're excited to have Kim Hoppy on from Grand Rapids. We still did have a couple people coming in. Okay. Reminder to our residents at home to use the Q&A box if you want to ask any additional questions. Kim is very organized with the pre-submitted questions, so thank you for those of you that provided those. And this is also recorded for us. So I will let Kim take it away.
All right. Thank you, Natalie. Well, first of all, I know we had a change in schedule from a couple weeks ago, and I appreciate your flexibility and your grace with a last minute change there. So thank you very much. So Natalie worked her magic with calendars, and here we are. So as Natalie said, I'm Kim Hoppy. I'm the CFO for UMRC in Porter Hills. My home is in Byron Center, Michigan. I've been with UMRC Porter Hills for 5.5 years. And prior to joining, I actually started with Porter Hills. Before joining Porter Hills, I was in public accounting for 16 years, all specializing in our industry. So I fell in love pretty quickly with our industry, and it's never really left my heart. So yeah, I'm happy to be here with everybody. Natalie did send me a handful of questions that were submitted in advance. And so I will go ahead and walk through those questions. It shouldn't take very long. We will have plenty of time in our hour to take whatever questions come up. And I know Natalie and I will do our very best to answer those questions as they come up. But if we have to circle back, we have to circle back. So, and we'll make sure we do that. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go ahead and go over some of the pre-submitted questions. So let me get this going. Okay, can you see my screen? Thumbs up. Okay, great. All right, so we had some themes of the pre-submitted questions, and so I put them in themes. We had capital, questions around capital. We had questions around dining, cash flow, and then there was maybe a couple, one or two other ones. And so we'll first start on capital. So these were the questions, and I know there's a lot of words there, and I'm going to break it down in a digestible format in just a minute. The first question was around our repairs and maintenance. When we looked at our P&L year to date through 9/30, it looked like we hadn't spent all of the dollars that were allocated in that period of time. So Natalie and I are going to answer that one together in just a minute. And then we had some questions around what kind of capital expenditures have been incurred in the previous years. And this is probably good information for new residents to Cedars of Dexter. So we have some charts and some information around that. And then the last item there is really around the guidelines for what do we capitalize and what do we expense. And I feel like there might be one or two accountants in the crowd. So we'll go into a little bit of detail on what the difference is. When do we capitalize and when do we expense? And we'll talk about that in a minute. So before I flip this page though, so why have we not spent all of our money yet on repairs and maintenance? Somebody said that it looked to be 47% of what's been budgeted. And it is the same story that we're all hearing. And it's consistent with all of our communities. It's really a supply chain issue. Materials are harder to get in, and it's harder to find vendors to do the work that have the appropriate staffing. And we're seeing those supply chain issues and that staffing issues all over in our communities. And I know personally, when I go out and try to buy things, there's not as much on the shelf, and you're probably going to be waiting a little bit longer because the staffing challenges. So that's really why we do intend to spend those dollars that are allocated this year. It'll just be a little bit later. So Natalie, did you have anything to add on that one before? Yep. Okay.
I guess just kind of the same sentiment, in talking with the maintenance manager here, it's such a frustrating problem to have, that we can't spend our money fast enough. And in my time here at the Cedars, just over 3 years, it's so different. I mean, it's amazing to see that the challenges we have to even get a vendor on the phone, and then the wait time between then when they come here, and then the wait time between when we receive a quote. I mean, these just, it's a constant waiting game, and I will just share that it is a very frustrating problem for us to have too. So
Yeah. So we absolutely, I mean, and this is from the CFO standpoint, right? We expect to spend those dollars that are allocated. So there should be no concern that we won't spend those dollars. It's just a little bit delayed, and we're getting creative. We work with Kate and the renovations team and the environmental services team. And so we've got lots of people that are in the know, and really smart people that are working creatively on all of our communities, trying to find solutions. So know that you're in good hands in this area. So, all right. So the next slide, it answers the next two questions around capital. So what we did was we tried to take a snapshot of all of the dollars that have been spent from 2017 to 2021, and we put them in buckets. And in total, I'm sorry, it's cutting off there. Oh, there it is. The total capital spent since 2017 to 2021, and that would be June 30, 2021, is $845,000, all at the Cedars of Dexter. And you can see where that $845,000 has been spent in the pie chart. $364,000 would be furniture, fixtures, equipment. There's been some land improvements, there's been some building improvements, and then a small amount going to IT. So, and just to give you some examples of specifics. So we just pulled out two. So water heaters, we've spent $160,000 on water heaters. Another one that people might be familiar with is we've spent $50,000 on the retaining wall. So those are just a couple examples of some high dollar items. Natalie does have the list of all of the items and where those dollars were spent, and I'm sure that she would be able to walk you through that, but we wanted to just kind of take a high level picture of that. And then for those accountants in the room, or people that are curious about what is our capitalization policy? What does it mean to expense something versus capitalize something? So when we spend dollars on capital items, you don't see that on your P&L. It's not part of your profit and loss statement. It's not part of your income statement. That's something that hits your balance sheet. And so it does not flow through your repairs and maintenance account. What does flow through your repairs and maintenance account that's on your profit and loss statement are things that do not extend the life of an asset or are less than $1,500. So anything that extends the life of an asset over a year or costs more than $1,500, we capitalize that. And that's what we would record on your balance sheet. So I added an example in there. And somebody, I think this came through one of the questions, a furnace, right? A furnace, hopefully, fingers crossed, lasts 15 years. That would be a capital item. When we buy that furnace, you're not going to see that hit your P&L, but we're going to have the dollars and we're going to allocate those dollars through a capital spending budget. a little bit further into the details, I'm thinking, well, somebody might want to know, like, okay, the 15 years, how do you depreciate that over the life of a furnace? How do you come up with that? And when we say depreciation, that is taking the asset, a furnace, and having it hit your P&L over the life of that entity or life of that asset through what's called depreciation. How do we come up with these depreciation lives? We follow a healthcare not-for-profit guide. So we have specifics that we follow that tells us a furnace is going to be 15 years. A computer is going to be X number of years. A building is going to be 39 years. And so we have specific guidelines that we follow. And somebody asked also, how do you assess our future capital needs? That's a big question. That's a big question because just at Cedars of Dexter, we have lots of homes. We have lots of buildings that we have to take care of. And we have many communities in addition to Cedars of Dexter that we are responsible for taking care of. What does that for, what helps us assess that is a capital needs assessment. And so that's actually a third party that comes in and walks our grounds, walks our buildings. They know what they're looking at. It's engineers, it's experts, and they say, okay, this building has been here for 10 years. What is this building going to need for the next 5 years, 10 years, 15? And they build out what we call a capital assessment, a needs assessment that we can easily go and grab off the shelf and say, okay, in fiscal year 24, this is what our needs are going to be. And we haven't had one done for Cedars of Dexter, I believe, in a while, just because it's a relatively new community, but that is in our organizational goals for fiscal year 23. So we'll have a capital assessment done for Cedars of Dexter and for the Chelsea campus. Our other campuses, the ones on the west side, they do have capital assessments, and so we're almost there. But that will allow us to kind of both get granular by community and then as an organization as a whole. So I hope that's helpful. That's how we will budget going forward, our capital needs and our capital spend. So yeah, that's capital. And we can circle back to capital at the end if anybody has any questions or wants me to go into any further detail. All right. So dining. So there were some questions around dining costs. And I believe many of you know Anne Marie. And Anne Marie did us a huge favor and provided us some industry data on what the cost of food looks like. And so she pulled the CPI report through middle of January. And over the last 12 months, I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anybody, that the food costs have increased 7%, as the CPI would state. Now, then she broke it down just over the last year. She said that 6.3% over the last year, and then she broke it down between food at home. So when we would go to the grocery store and we would bring food home, has increased 6.5%. And that's the largest increase since 2008. And we all remember what was happening in 2008, and we don't want to go back there. Food away from home, so we're going out to Outback, that's a 6% increase. And so both pretty significant dollars. She said our industry that we work in and that we all live in, we're considered food away from home. So that 6% is our number that we would focus on. And then she also added just an important piece, that's that meat, poultry, fish, eggs, you know, our proteins, what we all should be eating rather than the carbs, right? Has increased 12.5%. So that's really hefty. I had a comment there. Hang on, I just lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me. It'll come back. Anyway, so, oh, what I was going to share with you is that when I was pulling this information together, my husband actually works for Kellogg. And I said, hey, do these numbers make sense to you from a Kellogg standpoint? And he's absolutely. Those might be a little low from kind of their lens, but so I had another data source that I fact checked our numbers with. So in addition to industry data, we wanted to show what the food cost has been going back to 2017. We like to do things in 5 years, a 5-year trend to just give us some framework. And so you can see the food costs going back to 2017 and to 2021 have been just around 300,000. Now we've had a significant event since 2020. And so kind of the fluctuations, how we spend our dining dollars in the pandemic is very different than how we used to spend our dining dollars. And we're continuing to just live through this pandemic. So I hope that's helpful information to just give you a framework of what we're looking at. Natalie, do you want to jump in and say anything there?
Yeah, when I was looking at your graph, I was very interested too, because some of the history for newer residents too. At one point, we outsourced our dining department through a company called Morrison. So that was actually some of 2017, I believe the majority of 2017. So that's where you see the food cost is the highest, and that is not a surprise to us at all. And then you'll see in 2018, it went down quite a bit. And we really attribute that to discovering a lot of efficiencies, discovering a lot of waste. So that going down there in 2018 is not a surprise to me at all. You know, got a little bit more evened out in 2019, and then 2020, obviously COVID. And then 2021 isn't a huge surprise to me, being a little bit lower with our internal challenges that we had with our staffing being low and the dining room not being able to be open. So that limited your menu options a lot, as you all remember clearly, I'm sure. So yeah, the numbers aren't surprising to me.
Yeah. Natalie, I meant to ask you, did you have any comments on the previous slide, either the capital?
Not so much. All kinds of little examples of things in the FFE category, you know, that could be anything in the kitchen that needs replacing. So kind of things that our residents' eyes don't see, like a steamer in the kitchen needing to be replaced. And then thinking of building improvement type stuff, a lot of that, I think in the first 2 years I was here, is HVAC stuff. So all of these filter pumps and things to help keep the temperature regulated throughout the clubhouse. Some things with the cooling tower, things to keep the pool temperature regulated. So many of these behind the scenes things that you don't have a visual of, but a lot of things go into those numbers.
Thank you, Natalie. I appreciate it. Okay, the next items are cash flow related questions. And if you haven't spent much time with me, I like cash flow quite a bit. As an accountant, I'm a fan of cash flow. So thanks for asking these questions. So the first one was around a delay in a check being deposited, or a couple different checks. And I'll go ahead and take that one in just a minute. The next question was around our benchmark for days cash on hand. And I have a couple different graphs and charts around that. And then the next one is around what goes into our cash flow and the cash flow statement. And I have a couple comments about that. So the first one, before I flip to the next page, the check delay, there was a time where we had some transition issues with team members and location, and we've worked that all out now. And so the example of being the entrance fee check, that is, we have a much more solid process since April. We've really improve that process. Now on the employee holiday gift checks, I think that's a process that we still need to get our arms around a little bit to understand where those checks first come into, and then how do they get to the finance department or to the bank through whatever lane they need to get to the bank quickest. I think that is kind of of course, it's a holiday gift process. So that process doesn't happen every week, every month of the year. And so I think next year when that time comes around, finance and Natalie and her team will get together, we'll put our heads together and make sure that we've got those checks moving. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And I like those questions and comments because it gets me to ask a few more questions, and process improvement is always valuable. And I like to call it that we continue to evolve, not necessarily improve. We continue to evolve as an organization. So the next one, we'll start talking about our days cash on hand. And before I jump in too much, let me explain what days cash on hand is. So it's abbreviated as DCOH. So days cash on hand is how much money we have. If you think about it, how much money if we have in our checking accounts as an organization compared to the number of days we have in expense. I know that's confusing, so let me walk you through. So this is real life. So 1 day of expense in our organization, if we take all of our expenses and we say, what does 1 day cost us as an organization to run? It costs us about $200,000 per day to run our entire organization. Now, how many days can we run our organization based on what we have in our checking and savings account? That's what days cash on hand is. And I'm just going to this example here in blue. At the end of Q1 2022, we had 219 days of cash on hand in our accounts to run the organization, the future of our organization. So if you do the math, 219 days multiplied by $200,000. That's a lot of money that we have sitting available for future operations. Now, another way you could look at this and say, and this is not going to happen, but it's just theoretically and how we paint the picture. If we were not to have another penny of revenue, and that pains me to say that, right, CFO, if we didn't receive another penny of revenue tomorrow, we could last for 219 days on the cash that we have available. So very safe, very financially secure. So let me go back up here. So this is all getting to, we have certain financial guardrails that the governing board and the finance committee have put in place, that we said we want to have these financial guardrails to know that when we go to make a significant operational decision or a significant strategic decision, we have these guardrails in place to keep us safe from a financial standpoint. Back to the days cash on hand. We have the guardrails are, we do not, in the future, we do not want to have a minimum go lower than 250 days. And our goal is that we have 365, that we can go a full year, that we have enough in our bank account, that we could go a full year. Those are our guardrails. Now, how do we get to these guardrails, right? We get to these guardrails by looking at industry benchmarks, by looking at Fitch. Fitch is a rating agency, and we are rated. We are a bond holder. People hold our bonds, and with that, we are rated so that they know our financial strength. And one of the ways that they judge our financial strength is by looking at days cash on hand, debt service coverage ratio, cash to debt. So I want to also kind of paint the picture of, how healthy are we compared to our peers in the industry from a financial picture? So, and this is the chart on the left here. And in total, there are 750 community continuing care retirement communities. And that's what UMRC Porter Hills is a continuing care retirement community. We have independent living, we have assisted living, we have skilled nursing, we have the full continuum. That's what makes us a continuing care retirement community. So there's 750 organizations like UMRC Porter Hills in the nation, in the states. Approximately only 160 of those are rated. And of those that are rated, below is the chart to say where they're rated. And the further to the left you go to the A's, that's better, that's best. And then as you go to the right, double B minus, that is the lowest rated. Anything lower than a double B minus is unrated. We currently fall in the triple B minus, the yellow circle there. And our goal in the future is that we get to a triple B, which we feel, and the finance committee and the governing board feels, that a 365 days cash on hand will support a triple B Fitch rating. Now, there's a lot of things that go into that Fitch rating. So it's not just about having a healthy balance sheet. They also want to know that you're thinking strategically. They also want to know that, so they're not looking for you to have zero debt and a ton of cash. They're looking for strategic organizations that will continue to grow, but also keep themselves financially sustainable. So that's kind of the picture of why these ratings are important and why the ratings are important. So I know that was pretty heavy financial, and I'll skip to the next one here. This is a trend of where our days cash on hand has been since 2017. And you can see that red bar, that benchmark. We've used 341 as a benchmark. We probably will increase that to 365 just because that's the financial guardrails that have been approved. But so at the end of 2021, I think that's a really good picture of where we were at from an annual standpoint. Q1 2022, we were at 219. Now that's still a very reasonable place for us to be. There's a lot of things that happen in the first quarter of a fiscal year that we kind of catch up with as we go through the rest of the year. So I will tell you that we are projecting to be at 255 by the end of the fiscal year. So we were at 246 at the end of last fiscal year. Our guardrail is 250, and we expect to be at 255. So we are absolutely making progress. And remember, let me remind you too, that each move there, one increase is $200,000. So, and also thinking again, I want to go back to, it's not just about having cash in your bank, right? You heard me say in the beginning, we are committed to making the capital improvements that we need to make. Paying our team members what they need to be paid. And that's a challenging picture right now with unemployment. So this is just a piece of the financial picture. This is not the entire picture, but I wanted to narrow in on this because the question was asked. So, but I don't want to underestimate that, or under explain that there's more factors that go into all of our strategic financial decisions. So I hope that was helpful. And then there was a question about the elements of the cash flow. And so I just thought I'd spend a minute here. When you think about inflows, the dollars coming into Cedars of Dexter and coming into our organization, whether it's Cedars of Dexter or another community, we have revenue that you are going to see on your income statement, on your monthly P&L. That's from the monthly fees, the monthly rents. And then we also have the cash inflow coming from the entrance fees. And so when you moved into Cedars of Dexter, you paid a sum of money, you paid your entrance fee. And we rely on those entrance fees into the future for cash flow. So we don't spend all of that money in 1 year or in 1 month, and it's part of the overall financial strategy. So that's a really important piece of our cash flow that does not show up on the P&L. Those inflows on the entrance fees do not show up on the P&L. You see it more like you see depreciation, which is non-cash. Then you have cash outflows. And I know Natalie and Nicole, Mag, they talk about items that are listed here, things that we're going to write a check for: wages, benefits, interest on our debt, food, utilities, property taxes. And then we spent a lot of time talking about capital needs. So our annual capital needs, what are we spending this year? But then also looking and saying, are we saving enough? Are we putting enough money aside for when that, furnace goes out, right? Something big. And we all have that in our daily life, right? That we don't wait until we need the car repair to pay for the car repair. Hopefully we're setting enough aside each year so that when we have that car repair, it doesn't hurt as bad. So projecting future capital needs and making sure we have enough dollars set aside. So, and then I wanted to let you all know too that an annual cash flow statement at the obligated group level, which is several entities together, is available in the financial statement audit that I know Natalie will have available. I say it's in the library, but I know you don't have a library of sorts, but I know it's available for you to take a look at. So that annual financial statement audit would be through June 30, 2021. And actually, it's not at the obligated group. I apologize. It would be at the consolidated level that you would see. And you can see the cash flow statement there. So Natalie, do you have comments to make on cash flow?
Just adding for the residents, I think that is what I sent you all a link to that is found on our website. So yeah, we do not have it in our library, but you can always find those things on the website. So hopefully I directed you all to there. Maybe something helpful, Kim, too, and I'm sure it was in your videos, but can you tell these folks who the obligated group is, who all is in the obligated group?
Yeah. So the obligated group is a financing structure. So the members of the obligated group are all responsible for a pool of debt. That's the easiest way to think about it, is that we have a pool of debt, and those obligated group entities are responsible for that debt. And who's included in the obligated group? And you can keep me honest, Natalie. Cedars of Dexter, Chelsea Retirement, UMRC Foundation, Porter Hills Foundation, Porter Hills Village, which for those of you that don't know, Porter Hills Village is very similar to Chelsea Retirement Community, but in Grand Rapids. Cook Valley Estates in Grand Rapids, and Cook Valley Estates would be very similar to Cedars of Dexter. And then two more. And we have Meadowlark, which is a smaller community in Sparta, Michigan. It's so cute. If you ever have a chance to go, it's very cute. And then Home Care. Home Care is our certified Medicare home care, Medicare product. And that's also included in the obligated group. So yeah, thank you. Mhm. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Yeah, I will talk about obligated group and days cash on hand and debt service coverage ratio. And anybody that ever wants to jump on a call, I'm happy to talk about that. But I know some people are probably like, will she stop talking about days cash on hand? I'm starting to glaze over. So yeah.
Well, I will also echo, John, that you make it very easy for folks like me to understand. So thank you, Kim.
No, absolutely. Anytime.
We are all caught up in the Q&A here. I think people were pretty good about submitting questions in advance too. So that is really helpful for this. And I think most people that did that are on here as well. So I did record this and we'll get the link out to residents that were not able to join. So I think we'll have a big number of folks that tune in later too, Kim. So thank you for your time.
Anytime. And hopefully next year I'll see you all in person. Let's keep our fingers crossed. But
that would be great.
But also let's stay safe too. So thank you for letting me into your home, and thank you for joining me in my home. Yes.
I see one more question in the Q&A.
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah. So the books are through October. That's right. So let me think about this. So that presentation that we did was in December. And our books on a monthly basis are typically closed by the 13th or 14th of every month. And so I think we were probably just off a week or two, and with the holidays and stuff, remember we had Thanksgiving in there. So I think maybe a week or so later, we might've had November's results. Oh, I know why I did October. It's all coming back to me. Thank you for giving me a minute. I did October because it was our end of our quarter. So I was talking about just Q1. That's why I did that. But just for your information, I love that you're asking when the books are closed. So you obviously know what you're talking about, obviously. So, and we're cut from the same piece of cheese, I think. So, yep, we typically close our books by somewhere around the 13th to the 15th of every month. And that's 26 entities that we are closing. So we've got it down to quite a process. We have a great finance team, shore to shore, with some really smart people. And Natalie would say too, I think that we've got a really great collaboration between finance and our communities. So our finance team will come out and meet with Natalie and go through her numbers, maybe monthly, maybe every other month. But absolutely, if there's questions, there's lots of communication. We really look at it as a partnership. We don't look at finance as something that comes after the fact. We want to be proactive, and we want to help our communities and really be strategic and helpful. So on an annual basis, though, we have to leave our books open a little bit longer for the audit. So it maybe takes us 30 to 40 days to close our books. So yeah, thanks for asking that question.
Yes, and I will say we're very grateful for the finance team that does meet with us monthly. And we do loop in Anne Marie to kind of get the dining portion of that. And it's really neat. We go through, if we have to, we'll dive into actual specific expenditures or line items, and we ask some really crazy questions and they can figure it out for us. So they are a very helpful team. Okay, I think we are all set with our questions out there. If you think of other things at home after you've had some time to digest, don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, this is recorded, and I will get out a link for our folks that missed it. And once again, just a big thank you to Kim for joining us from Grand Rapids this afternoon.
Thanks for having me, everybody. See you soon. Thanks
Thank
again.
you.